My name is Tom Jackman. I'm from St. John's, Newfoundland.
We put this one somewhere. It's like we use these on start, but we don't know what it is until they tell us what the road condition is. They'll radio. It depends if there's water on the road, things like.
I do a lot of volunteer work. My mom always tells me like I lead a really, really full and interesting life.
It should be 48 flat.
I guess I was gonna say it's not really along the lines of normal, but who's to say what is normal? Like what is normal?
When I look back on it now, and I know he had problems, social problems in school, but Tom was the youngest kid in his class, he was the biggest kid in his class, and he was the smartest kid in his class. And that's got nerd written all over it. He really didn't have a chance. So we really never ever considered the fact that he had autism.
I was like kind of in my mid-20s when I actually figured it out. And I sort of went into a bit of a spin, and then they tried all these other different diagnoses until one doctor actually came up with Asperger's. We're really smart. Like, we have a lot of the academic abilities, but it's just like the socialness of things is difficult. And those same things are sort of in the workplace. Right now, I'm not working. Like today, I'm not working, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to be working tomorrow. It's just just the way it is. But I am really busy with all kinds of other pursuits in life.
Showing up at 1:30 for the game, yeah?
Are you getting ready, are you?
Yeah. I do camera number 4. And it's always the same thing, and mostly follows the players. Certain players in certain situations when they get checked into the boards, and as they go up the ice, my camera follows them on a tight shot. We don't even have to go to the main entrance. We just got a name badge, and we can walk in, we show the lady. And then we got a whole TV studio built into the basement.
I do a lot of different camera work for hockey games.
Some games volunteer, some games are paid games. But yeah, we're all just sort of mostly just do it as a hobby type thing.
What happens with these employment places is they will help you get the resume done, and then they might help you say, yes, you can go over to this employer, but they don't actually take you there. And that's what Tom needs. Tom needs somebody to take him through that step. Once he gets over here, and if he's got a good mentor, he should be fantastic.
It's too bad you couldn't just like know where you wanted to work and sort of go knock on the door and just kind of start working there on Monday. It just doesn't, the world has so many processes that are all sort of social and political.
He could find a job, but yeah, he needs somebody there. He's certainly employable. He's very smart.
There are a lot of ways we find meaning in life, and for almost all of us, part of it comes from what we do, from our jobs. It's where many of us spend a majority of our waking hours, where we interact with others, gain independence, build careers, support ourselves, support our families, and establish friendships. Our work is sometimes where we feel stuck or lost or challenged to make a change, an opportunity to feel good about where we fit and how we contribute to society. But some are still searching for that chance. They're ready with skills, they're willing to contribute, but their opportunities are limited by their disability or challenges, a condition that leaves many of them falsely labeled as permanently unemployable.
This is the blue room, and you know because it says blue room. This is pretty much where we learn everything. We have learned about budgeting, about what is appropriate to wear for job interviews.
Nice to meet you. My name's Alyssa. Have a seat. Okay, so maybe legs like this. You want to put your feet back?
Sometimes I get tired of sitting.
So sometimes, like this is okay, right? So tell me about yourself.
I'm a nice guy
and I like meeting new friends, and I like getting the job.
My boy Matthew is 17, has a diagnosis of autism. Got that just before he turned 3. I've got Matt at when he's 25 is when he's moving out. That's sort of been my MO all along, is getting him ready to move out. But you know, when people be asking you, what's he gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know.
And was wondering if you made a decision about the job.
Autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by impairments in social interaction, communication challenges, and repetitive or rigid behavior. Parents often notice signs in the first 2 years of their child's life. Although the causes of autism remain a debate, for almost everyone diagnosed, autism is a lifelong condition.
The problem you've got in autism is you've got a very, very big spectrum. Going from Steve Jobs and Albert Einstein, who didn't talk until age 3, and half of the other people in Silicon Valley, down to somebody who's going to remain nonverbal, that's going to have to live in a group home. Everybody needs to learn work skills and learn how to do things.
It was a shock for us as parents suddenly to have a disabled child. We were told that he would risk being bullied, being rejected by the labor market.
When we're sitting there, you know, I think she was 4.5, with all these professionals, you know, and you're so vulnerable at that point, and lots of tears, and yeah, what the hell now?
There is tons of early intervention, and Matt's been all the way through school, and then there's nothing specific for our population once they turn 18.
Can you do the next one on your own?
You can imagine when you're 18 years old, and you look down the road into your future, and you see nothing.
When I first got involved in the field, the incidence of the disorder was rarer than many bone cancers are.
Over the past 10 years, the rates of diagnosis of autism have absolutely skyrocketed. There's going to be a huge segment of the population that's going to be in the workforce pretty soon. And if we don't start training them and making them ready for employability, we're still going to have to pay for them.
They start off with autism, and then if there's no opportunities, they become socially isolated, they develop mental illnesses, or they develop behavior problems, and they're poverty-stricken. I mean, these are going to be people living on the street.
These are people that can contribute, you know. I mean, this is not about charity.
It's about what I can do and being validated because I'm not working, I'm running a business. And then we have the side saying, well, you can't work, but we are.
Every human being deserves the right, in my mind, to have something that makes them feel good about living.
What would your previous supervisor or teacher say your strongest point is?
My autism.
Okay, so what about it?
It's my biggest strength and weakness.
Oh.
They used to just put kids like me into an institution. The more severe autistics, oh, it's horrible what happened to them. You know, so there's been huge improvements. But I'm concerned, especially with the older, really smart, high-functioning autism, Asperger's, ADHD, and whatever, there's not enough emphasis on jobs.
When you're talking about a child with a special need, the thinking about your child's future becomes an obsession. In a blink of an eye, he's 12. And I know that I'm going to blink again, and he's going to be 18.
So, why haven't people on the spectrum found work? Some of the reasons are in autism itself, like sensory issues. People with autism often have an extreme over- or underreaction to sensory stimulation.
Her shirt has to be white. Shirts, white only. You could not put a black shirt on, a grey shirt, or a green shirt. It has to be white. And black pants.
There was some specific dress attire for going to work, which is sometimes a struggle with our kids because they don't like clothes that don't feel good or clothes that are too tight, and Matt has a very comfortable wardrobe.
I'm the only one that knows why he panics when he puts a shirt over his head and it doesn't come down right away, and why that sends him into a panic. I'm the only one that knows how to brush his teeth so that he doesn't have a meltdown.
We used to have a decorative little waterfall in our out in our back garden. You know, nice, relaxing, listening to the water fall over the thing. Well, it used to drive Tom right around the bend. And I used to think he was just being an obnoxious teenager because he hated the thing and he'd go out and unplug it. Until we found out that because of his Asperger's, he has super sensitive hearing.
One of the challenges that we hear about is just the sensory overload, whether it's just the noise of somebody close by breathing too loud, or the noise of somebody eating or chewing gum that just becomes completely overwhelming.
So I needed a house that was really quiet. So that was one of our main requirements. The house couldn't be on a busy street and had to be in a quiet neighborhood. I call it my sanctuary, and sometimes if they're doing construction outside, I'll say, oh no, my sanctuary's been breached, because I have to leave and I can't get away from the noise. I can't stand the sound of people breathing. I can't stand the sound of people clearing their throat. I can't stand it when people are always moving their hands or jiggling their feet. Like, imagine that a wolf came at you, right? Like, your body reacts as if that sound, even though it's just breathing, is a wolf. And so you're always getting flooded with adrenaline. And what happens is you get really, really irritable. You get really, really over-aroused. And it becomes very, very difficult to function. One of my first jobs, I was working at a gas company, and my job was data entry. Working in a cubicle where, you know, there's 4 people around my cubicle, and then there's like 50 cubicles in the room. I was so anxious all the time, and I only ended up lasting 3 months at that job because it wasn't that I couldn't do the job. It was that I couldn't help myself sort of manage in that environment. I became an elementary school teacher. I had a little boy in my class, and I was told that he had Asperger's syndrome. And I said to this, to the LERT, like the learning resource teacher, I said, what is Asperger's syndrome? And she told me. I began to wonder, you know, is that what I look like when I was in grade 2? Did I act like that in grade 2? So I went to a psychologist in Kitchener. I asked her, can you check? Do I have autism? And I did. It was amazing to have the correct diagnosis. Like, it was like a huge door had opened. I remember I opened up this book about autism one day, and it listed 6 things that people with autism typically eat, and I ate 5 of the 6 of them. Yogurt, it has to be flavored because I don't like a vanilla yogurt, right? And I've been punished my entire life for not being able to eat. Like, I just can't explain how relieving it is to know that it's not your fault. So this is my swing. If you swing on this swing, then the anxiety reduces. I always have musician's ears. They're these really awesome earplugs. That little circle thing is a filter, and I have 3 different levels. So I have 9 decibels, 15, and 25. And I wear them all day, every day, and I have different earplugs for sleeping. I started talking with my therapist about, okay, well, what are my strengths? And so we thought that going to graduate school might be a better environment or a better fit for who I was. What I'm actually looking at is the writing of adolescents and children with ASD. And I'm comparing that to both their siblings and to their typically developing peers. So this is where I work when I'm at the university. All the girls in the lab know I have ASD, and they know I have sensory issues. So it's a lot easier for me to say to my coworker, you know, and I need you to stop clicking that pen, and not worry that they'll be offended because they know. They understand what autism is. This is what we do, right? Whereas when I'm in the other lab, there's way more people. So this is the kind of environment that would drive me crazy. Absolutely, because there's just so many people all in the same spot at the same time. They would be eating different things. The smells from their lunches would bother me. The fact that they'd be moving around, making noise. They might be talking on their cell phone.
Although sensory issues can be huge stumbling blocks, they're often straightforward fixes. A quiet room, earplugs, having understanding workmates. But the real solution lies in people on the spectrum having control over their environment. With control, sensory experiences can become more positive experiences.
I'll show you something cool over this way. It's a outdoor, it's a music therapy kind of thing. Like, I don't know, I'll show it to you when I get over here.
More difficult to navigate are complex social norms, understanding nonverbal social cues, developing and maintaining relationships.
Before I went to university, one of my greatest wishes was to have people in my life that weren't paid to be in my life. Before I went to grad school, I didn't have anyone in my life that wasn't paid to talk to me like a therapist. That's one of the greatest things, and if I had a wish going forward, my wish would be that I could stay there.
So much of our job requires us to be social. We don't even know it. It's something we take for granted. A person with autism may greet you every time as if they're seeing you for the first time, and you're thinking, this guy's a bit odd. He hasn't been told you don't have to repeat your greeting if you did it this morning already, except if it's after lunch, you probably should say it again.
When I went into the elementary school system, I loved working with the kids. The kids were awesome. But when it came to the other teachers, I had a lot of trouble navigating a social system that didn't make sense to me. I just didn't fit in. It was really hard for me.
I can do the jobs. I'm a good worker. I get great reference letters when I leave. And I'm always leaving for the same reason. When the gossip happens in a workplace, that round the cooler talk, they call it, we're supposed to take a side and we don't. And when you're left in the middle, you're targeted by both sides because they don't know which side you're going to go to. It becomes very difficult when you already have a social blindness.
Hello, this is Dieter. I'm calling about interview we had at last Thursday.
And many never even get the chance to try fitting into a workplace because they can never get past the first, often insurmountable obstacle to a job, the interview.
I never got a single job through an interview. I got jobs by showing off my portfolio of drawings and photographs of jobs to the people that actually were going to be using the equipment, the people that were going to be interested in it. We got to start working a lot more on the back door, selling the work.
I've had jobs in the past. Like if you were like writing a book or doing something, I'm really good at like feeding you information because I can find it so quickly. A lot of it does come down to like the resume process and the job interview process, and like we sort of have troubles with those one-on-ones, and it's really hard to change or adjust to change. Or I'm sort of not a person who needs like a kind of like a job coachy person all the time, but it's like there's a big old world outside the window, and it's like you don't know where to go, like, or where to turn, or.
You're supposed to make eye contact and smile and make all those facial expressions.
Socially, he finds it very difficult to make eye contact with people. He finds it very difficult to make small talk with people. He can't read body language. Like if you look at Tom and you make a really angry look on your face, he doesn't see that at all.
Yeah, we can totally function. It's just given the chance, like, and having people who understand that there's might be something a little different about us. I live independently on my own, and it's just like a room in a house, and other people do live at the house. It is difficult to live with other people that you don't really know.
I don't want to come off as bossy. It's just like, the other day I was doing laundry, and one of the guys took the laundry out of here and put it in here. Then he put his laundry in, right? And it kind of bugged me that he was touching my stuff.
I get these quirks that kind of like create anxiety sort of thing. My brain is not so much like it's not so much an OCD brain where it's always got to be sort of like washing his hands or sort of like, but it's just always thinking like, what if I do this, then what if this happens? And then my brain won't do anything because it's afraid it gets sort of all hung up until somebody got to just like point it in the right direction.
You can go to the mall, you can come home, and someone else will be moved into your house. It's just not really the way I like it, you know?
Some people with autism do not seek out the kind of social niceties that you and I want out of people. It's not on their radar. All those nuances that make up the working world, you know, not rolling your eyes at your boss, and also what it means when your boss praises you and that's a good thing that you want to happen again.
We moved our boardroom upstairs, and then we made this all into like a kid-friendly area.
I'm a board member with the Autism Society of Newfoundland and Labrador. I've been a board member there for approximately the last 4 or 5 years.
If he walks into a crowded room of board members and whoever, one of the staff here stand so that when Tom enters the room, he can scan and find that person that he knows is my connection, like, okay, I'm okay. Because initially that it's a sea of people and I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety and insecurity about that. So there's little tweaks you have to make, but nothing that changes your work day or anything like that.
Must be cool to actually be able to fly. Like, when we're like humans, they teach us to walk type thing, but imagine if they like taught you to fly. It's like, cool.
We read in the newspaper, Mark Zuckerberg has Asperger's, all the famous inventors have Asperger's. So what happens when you can't manage an entry-level job?
Sometimes someone on the spectrum has enough skills to make it through the application process and actually get the job, but their unique challenges create a typical result: losing the job.
Surprisingly, on my own, I did secure some employment from a grocery store. When I was there, I was always on time, and I always took my duties seriously, and I actually even enjoyed most of the duties I was doing. When it came to them wanting me to do multiple tasks and to understand things in just a few short days, that's when it kind of went downhill a little bit.
Every night he would come home, he would expect to spend all night, the entire night, catching up. He was consuming vast quantities of sugar-filled, caffeine-filled drinks. He was feeling more and more like a failure. I would drive him to the subways in the morning and he was falling asleep on his way to work. He was putting so much pressure on himself. We don't know whether he was fired or resigned, but he couldn't keep on going.
Mental health gaps keep coming up in all of our interviews and work with parents. Sorry, we have a great program, but because you're autistic, you don't fit. Sorry, we do mental health for everybody with anxiety disorders, but if it's an anxiety disorder with autism, we don't have people that can help you.
Both me and the place realized that it just wasn't working, and we both agreed that it was time just to call it quits.
This cycle of failure can crush the potential for a meaningful life. Instead of focusing on someone's weaknesses, why not focus on their strengths?
You're not dealing with people that are gossiping. They're not talking on Facebook. They're not looking at their phone every 5 seconds. That aspect of their lives isn't there, as it is with more neurotypical people. They work, almost to a fault.
We want to go out and work and be part of society. People with differences have a lot to offer.
Common Ground is a nonprofit social care cooperative that provides support to 5 social enterprises in Toronto. It promotes the inclusion of persons with developmental disabilities in empowered workplace environments, including one of their own companies, Lemon and Allspice Bakery.
We're unique in Canada. Our business partnership model is one of a kind.
Common Ground.
You would enter the Foundations program, which is a skills training program that teaches things like customer service, cash register skills training, conflict resolution.
I'm gonna hire you guys because we have 3 spots open. So does that work?
That
works. That's great.
After they complete their Foundations program, clients get a job placement, and some end up partners, like Joanna.
My parents knew that I had a disability, but we knew exactly what it was. Somebody told me I had autism, which was like Asperger's or high mild autism. It was different, I guess, but I had my experiences, which were not from what other kids had, other people had.
Lemon and Allspice helps people deal with social issues through mentors or job coaches.
The job coaches support us on how we do stuff and correct how we do stuff and support us along the way. And they're not there to say, we have to teach you how, but we work together. They're working with us, and we teach each other.
And the way the business partnerships work is they come together as a collective to discuss whether or not this person fits in. Then they would be voted into the business partnership.
I always like being creative, and it's always good to have some sort of cooking skill. And the Common Grounds Lemon and Allspice came up, and I actually felt like I fit right in, like I was part of a team, like I didn't feel different or anything.
Some people are only capable of working 1 day a week, others can work 5 days a week. We structure everything around what your capabilities are and provide support geared specifically to how you work.
It's about what I can do and being validated because at work I'm running a business. And then we have society saying, well, you can't work, but we are.
The partners are paid on a revenue sharing basis. Since most people are subsidized through the government, we have a payment structure that makes sure that someone's subsidy isn't affected. Even though people challenge us on the fact that we're not helping to support people with competitive wages, we're still doing something meaningful. People are empowered and employed and feeling useful, which also affects your health and affects your self-esteem and your well-being, and you feel like you're contributing as a citizen to society, which is something that a lot of people with developmental disabilities don't get the opportunity to do.
I never had a career that I was actually interested in. I didn't know what to do. I went to a few programs. My therapist at the time found common ground for me, or Lemon Allspice, and they offered me a job.
It's great to have a goal, and I see partners go like this a lot of times when they know business is good. But for them, it's coming together and sharing and having a say in how the business is run.
We train new parts that are coming into work. We train them. They come in the kitchen. Anybody that they want to hire, we interview and we approve and we vote on whether we want them to work for us.
The partners own the business. They are the ones who interview and hire job coaches. They also interview and hire staff, including the boss.
My interview was with Joanna. She was very thorough and asked me all kinds of questions. What would you do if I couldn't do something? Would you help me? How would you treat me? How do you treat others was a really important question. And what difference could you make was what she said. And so I found I was actually very nervous in my interview when Joanna interviewed me. But I thought I did really well, and apparently I did.
Once I do it, once or twice, and I learn. I can do it on my own. I can teach the next one.
Why should we hire you? Because I'm a good girl, I have good attitude, and I'm always on time.
An extra pair of hands to help work.
Great.
There are also some entrepreneurs on the spectrum who decide to take matters into their own hands and just make things happen. For example, John Gauthier started Goodfoot Delivery with his sister.
A while back when I got diagnosed or whatever, I got this letter saying, like, you are permanently unemployable. And I'm like, how is that even possible? You know? I've always been working on computers, and I've never really had a full-time career, full-time job. If I go for a corporate permanent position, they'd be like, you only have small business experience, you don't really have anything that we can use. Kirsten, my sister, she had this brainwave, this brainchild idea that she wanted to help me get stable employment. So she's like, how would you like to deliver packages around the city? We opened up Goodfoot as not-for-profit.
And then all of a sudden it exploded, and we had parents calling us and young adults calling us about getting a job and how can they work for Goodfoot. And so now we understand the need that's out there, because there's not a lot of organizations that provide employment opportunities. There's lots of organizations providing support to employment, but not actual employment opportunities.
I'm able to do deliveries throughout the city, downtown, mainly downtown core. So, meaning like I have the package for them, just go in, hand the package, and they sign for it.
We get out, we explore, we go to other parts of the city. They get to see us, they get to see us as people.
Everyone that's come on board with Goodfoot has stayed, which is amazing in terms of retention of employees.
Goodfoot is a non-profit that at present employs 6 people with disabilities, but the demand and growth potential are huge.
We can't go too much lower than the overnight rate, but if you are able to eat up to $1, charity is a big business. So To me, the fact that we're actually providing a service and doing something that is genuinely revenue generating is really cool. For us to get more support from the charitable sector, we actually need to grow our revenues on the business side of things.
I wanted to make a difference or create something that I can make a difference in, or help people, or I always like giving and a generous side of me too, and I wanted to help out people and give back.
Instead of viewing autism as a negative, Specially Stern sees it as a competitive advantage. The majority of employees in Specially Stern have a diagnosis on the autism spectrum and work as consultants on tasks like software testing, programming, and data entry for the corporate sector.
I've learned that they can perform market competitive jobs, and the corporate sector is interested in the values that they generate.
Specially Stern has no formal education or job experience requirements and has eliminated formal interviews, using other strategies to identify the strengths, the motivation, and the development opportunity.
We have defined a 5 months assessment and training program. We give them some tasks and learn about how they read instructions, what happens if a task is too hard, too easy. 70% of our consultants work among employees of the customer. So we're breaking down the walls and just getting used to work. See these people as any other person.
And this isn't a small dream. Thorkel wants Specially Stern to employ 1 million people.
A full-time job.
We are starting to make headway with big business.
Well, about 4 years ago, we opened up a distribution center that was going to be different. We decided to build new technology and use it to enable a group of people who had never had a job before, people with disabilities. So we started off with a very high goal of 1 out of 3 employees. We're not a charity, we're a business. That was the first thing. We wanted to pay people the same wage, hold them to the same standards, working side by side.
Walgreens is aware of the social challenges for their employees with disabilities, and therefore, where the company needs help.
What we learned is we had to find good partners. We're experts at doing our business. We're not experts at disabilities. And a lot of people in the disability community have given up. They've had so many disappointments. So we had to find partners who could find us qualified candidates.
It was real hard, especially for a person with autism. I didn't get a job until the age of 27.
What we've discovered with our data across looking at all jobs across thousands of hours, there's no difference in performance. We found our retention is better, our turnover is less, and our accident rate is less. So we can say on the rational side, this makes good business sense. The surprising thing to us, and what we're so excited about, is how it's changed the culture, how it's engaged the teams, how it has made managers better because they have to treat each person as an individual, something we say we do, but we rarely do. And that has benefited everyone, not just people with disabilities, but everyone's.
You just see it in them. They have a heart for, they have a whole different view on things than we have.
It's paid enough for me to live on my own.
I have a lot of hope for corporate America. We bring in a lot of other companies, and a lot of other companies have come and seen this and are doing it in their own way.
Do you have any questions for me?
I think that's probably it.
No questions?
No questions.
Okay, well, it was nice meeting you, Matthew.
Thank you. So, meet you again someday.
Hopefully, okay, see you soon.
I think that what we need to do is to start to think about transitioning a lot earlier. As soon as you get into high school, this is the time to find out what kind of skills do you have that will allow you to move forward through high school and either into post-secondary education or straight into some kind of a job.
My name is Devin. I am in grade 9 right now, going into grade 10 in the fall.
I started making jewelry about 3.5 years ago. Started selling in November of 2009, I think. It was at a craft fair just at my school, and I've done that 3 times. I was doing an art class a couple of years ago, and yeah, that was one of our projects. I did this at the same art class, and this I did. I actually have the picture of what that was based off of. I'm Devin. I'm good, thanks.
Hi, Devin.
That's your first job?
Yeah.
Yeah? My mom told me about the London Drugs program. I guess their whole goal of the program was to show what it's like to actually work in a store.
We as a company with London Drugs work with the Society for Treatment of Autism and the Ability Hub to give their participants or clients an opportunity to learn true workplace skills. And they do an 11-week program with us.
The product has to be seen, it has to be lined up correctly, and it has to be brought forward.
Store employees would kind of talk to us about what we'd be doing that night and where we'd be working. Part of it was like moving things around to make the store shelves look nicer. They would give us tips like, oh, if you look at it row by row, it'll be easier.
This is a reptile. Okay, now who's next? Devin?
He.
There's no P. I'm sorry. There's no P in this one. I'm sorry.
As you get older, life is a social experience. She's quite an introverted girl and she doesn't go out a lot. So just encouraging her a little bit in that direction.
Is it alligator?
Yes! You're right!
Am I right?
Yes, you're right!
Yay!
It's an alligator! You got it right! It's an alligator! You got it right!
There's a huge amount of opportunity for companies to, it's an opportunity for them to learn about autism and also to train these people and maybe have a future workforce that that no one thought of using before.
Fog is 7, that means break is over.
All right, let's go.
We have had staffing levels of 1-to-1 with some clients, 1-to-2, 1-to-3. Really depends on the clients and the job you're doing. They've taken a bunch of our training materials and turned them into visual aids because that is a huge benefit for people with autism is they like the visual aids.
They want a stock cake. I'm getting it.
I think we've had 13 clients, 13 participants through the program at different stores, and we've hired 4 of them. They're as good, or in some cases, we've seen better than, other employees we've hired.
Her dad thinks she should go into drafting. He's an engineer, and he thinks she would be a perfect draftsperson because she has such a close eye for detail. But she says she doesn't want anything to do with that. She would like to go to ACAD and pursue jewelry making.
Overall, we've seen improvement in pretty much every individual we put through, and to a degree, improvement in ability to deal with people.
Part of it was like, if someone asks about something, this is what you can say to them. If I'm selling at a craft fair, it might have taught me like how to talk to people.
One big challenge is there an interest? Because clearly you can teach skills when somebody's interested. So you have to find something and encourage interests. And one thing that make that successful is to expose them to a lot of different things so you can find where the interests are.
Tom has been very unhappy where he's been living. So I said to him, well, what are you going to do about it? I'm always trying to make him as independent as he can be. So the next thing I know, he has gone and talked to what's called the Stella Burry Association here, and they help people with disabilities.
Yeah, it's a way nicer place you'll see once I go up here. There's double machines and stuff, but it's not in the kitchen. So now it's kind of like separated better. Yeah, to see how much more you get.
They asked him if he could get some documentation as to why he should have a nice little bachelor apartment all to himself, and within about I'd say 5 days, he had about 5 or 6 letters written by the executive director of the Autism Society, the executive director of the, Canadian Association for Disabilities, a couple of city councillors.
Like in the other place, there's like 4 people's dishes piling up and stuff like that going on too. So at least now it's like your own dishes, your own fridge, your own mess, your own.
In the new place, he will have access to like social workers and guidance counselors and employment counselors and all those kinds of people. So who knows, he might get employed yet.
So you guys each want to pick a card. It's not afraid of a challenge.
I'm tough at challenges.
I always am.
Although there are some programs and some progress being made for adults on the spectrum looking for work, there is not nearly enough. It's the willingness to shift and innovate our business models, using mentors, rethinking hiring processes like the interview, and capitalizing on strengths and interests that will lead to the meaningful transition to the adult world that we all want.
It's one thing to say to a corporation, you should be doing this. You should be hiring individuals with autism. You should be hiring individuals with CP. But you need to give them the tools on how to do that, how to train them, what's worked, what hasn't worked. You can't just point the finger and say it's your responsibility. We as a society need to show them why. We need to give them the tools to maximize their success.
Is work simply about the opportunity for people to be in the engine of our economy? What about everyone's need to feel worthwhile, to be able to contribute?
The golf club handicap is a measure of how much special consideration is needed by the individual to play golf among the best players in the club. So they know that in order for people to work on equal terms, you have to give some special consideration. But you're expected to train and develop your skills all the time. That's part of the game.
I know a father that has a son who is severely impaired. Now, I mean severely. And all this kid wants to do is shed paper all day long. He decided, I'm going to turn this into a business. And now he has a shredding business. And they just bring paper in, and his son sits there and shreds paper. So they're not fighting with him any longer. I mean, they've turned it into something constructive. And I think that's the kind of thing we're hearing about, and we need to exploit it.
I remember when we finally made a decision, and as leader, I had to make sure that everybody knew that I believed in this. But there were some nights, and I remember sitting there in the kitchen, and my wife said, is this really gonna work? And I remember at that instant, it was like crossing to the other side, and everything else was just noise behind me. That was the moment that I knew we were doing it right, to step over that line of fear, and we've never looked back. And I would say that this is the most rewarding work of my life.
This is the next big shift, our great challenge. Can we find ways for everyone to have the opportunity to live their own full and meaningful adult life? Can we show these people, these parents, and ourselves that we are better off with an inclusive, accepting, and diverse workforce? It's not just about jobs. It's about all of us finding a great meaning for our lives.
Like, what if I could research, all these things that we actually do better than neurotypicals or typically developing, so that I could show people, I could show employers, this is what we have worth. This is our worth. This is what we can bring to you, is our ability to do these various types of tasks. And that would be an amazing research project.
We started this with you and me. Mm-hmm. And now we have 5 or 6 couriers, and now John has huge aspirations, which are amazing, to have a good foot in every city across Canada.
I never really had a job. It's giving me a place to go to every day as well.
Sometime in the future, maybe in a couple years' time, take a chance and try securing part-time employment, maybe 1 or 2 days a week at another bakery.
I have 20+ years in the hospitality industry as an executive chef. I ran a cooking school, I ran a catering company. I decided to find something a little bit more meaningful that I could put my heart and soul into, as much as we want to foster the growth of our partners, Common Ground has also fostered the growth of me as well as a person.
I guess I need to put it more back in order with sort of like the house and the white picket fence kind of thing, and like, you know, but like, I guess there's still lots of time for those things. I guess it's sort of like the Asperger life. It's like not really sort of as per normal. Hopefully with more and more awareness will become more acceptance, and then people will be able to like have a better quality of life on the spectrum.